is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Stranger Things 2, episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Woo!
Mad Max, Trick or Treat Freak, and the Pollywog. In these episodes, Maggie thought that watching 3 in a row would make it easier to be unspoiled, and she was wrong. So wrong. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Oh, Natasha's an evil genius, is what she is. Ugh.
Welcome
so
to the
mean.
show, everyone. I'm Natasha.
I'm Maggie.
And I have watched this entire season already, the day it dropped. You betcha. And Maggie hasn't.
No, Maggie watched the first episode, and then we had to reschedule our recording a couple times. And in the meantime, Natasha was like, hey, do you maybe want to talk about 3 episodes? And I was like, yeah, that'll be awesome. That means I get to watch 3 episodes. Woo!
Mm-hmm.
And I get to the end of the 3rd episode. And I was like, oh, Natasha's such a bitch.
Yeah, so everyone, last year when we covered Stranger Things, we did it in an accelerated format where we released like 3 episodes a week. We don't have the time to do that this year. Last year, the only reason we were able to make that happen was we did a fundraiser in order to like be paid for the extra time and effort it was going to take to push them out that fast. And I really didn't want to do a fundraiser this year because I'm doing one already for a trip that I'm taking with a co-host. So we decided that since this is a show, everyone will have binged and be kind of over if we wait 2 whole months to finish covering it. It would be better if we covered 3 episodes at a time, and that way we will get through them while everybody is still eager to hear and talk about them, and they haven't all lost interest completely. So hopefully y'all can feel me on that. And I think that the way this show is structured, there's 9 episodes. Doing 3 at a time will be, it'll cover the arcs of the story really nicely, I think. So what'd you think of these first 3? What were your impressions?
I was, think about it overall. I enjoyed a lot of the characterization.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, I'm very excited to see where it goes. It kind of already is a little, it's kind of how I thought it would go in a lot of ways. And there were some surprise additions to the cast, which was fun. Overall, the main complaint we had with the first episode was they were hitting the music a little bit hard. There's a little bit more of a, like, it is 1984 sort of thing to these episodes. Then it was a little more, obviously part of the appeal of the first season was like, ooh, it kind of reminds us of our childhood or whatever, but it was just sort of all in the background, whereas here it's a little more like, hey, remember?
Yeah.
It's the 80s. Everybody's going to be in costumes from the 80s, play music from the 80s. And I was like, okay, yep.
Yeah, I actually noticed that myself in the first one. And like, I was just kind of like, yeah, right, I guess. But it definitely was noticeable that they went harder. I agree.
Yeah, it wasn't quite as bad for the second couple. Like when the guy pulled up, when they were playing Whip It, when they walk into the thing, and then the guy pulls up playing Rock Me Like a Hurricane, and I was like, okay, we get it. It's the bad guy in the fast car with the rock song. And then the nerds again, they're playing Devo again. I'm like, yeah, good, everybody's going to have, a theme song. I don't know, maybe they just had the rights to more music this time.
That's certainly possible too, actually. That never occurred to me.
Yeah, like I feel like they were able to afford stuff that they couldn't last time, because obviously also the effects this time around they spent a lot more money on. because we talked a lot last season about how a lot of it was practical effects.
Mm-hmm.
And this one I was like, nope, they're going big. They got a monster in the sky. That is not, this is CGI. Which is kind of a bummer. But I'm glad to have these characters back. I really do like all these characters. And so, I'm excited to see what's
so let's talk about the start of this, because the very first episode opens with a group of people we've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And they're running out of what looks like an apartment building that the alarm's going off in, wearing masks. Mm-hmm. They hop into a car that's waiting for them and take off in this van at top speed, chased by the cops. And there's this exciting chase scene, and finally they're passing through a tunnel. Because
it's Pittsburgh.
Yes.
But it's not. It's not. My husband's from Pittsburgh.
Not.
He's like, this is not Pittsburgh. Really, it was very comic book guy of him when we were watching. He's like, this is definitely not Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I lived there for a little while when I was in college.
Right, you were in college there.
No.
But they're like, we'll put in a tunnel. It'll be Pittsburgh.
And they get chased by a bunch of cops. Like, it's clear whatever this is, they're a big deal that they're being chased like this. And they go through this tunnel, and the guy at the head of the line sees the tunnel explode, and he screeches to a halt, causes this like huge collision. And everybody's asking him, why the fuck did you do that? And he gets out of the car all confused and looks, and the tunnel has not, in fact, exploded.
Right, because weird girl in the car has gone boom, which they all know she can do. They're all like, do it, do it!
Yep.
And she's got an 8 on her hand, right where 11 has an 11 on her hand. And she's also real creepy.
Yeah.
Like Elle used to be real creepy. Lots of eye makeup. Apparently that's a thing the government does. Do you know?
Well, she's obviously, her friends have a lot of makeup also.
Yeah. It's just funny how they make her look like super extra spooky.
There's one guy that she's with that I actually need to like zero in on a little bit more, because he's got a mohawk, but he has a tattoo across his forehead that's like at the very top, like where his scalp begins.
I didn't notice that.
I don't know what it says. I have to go back and check on that. But yeah, I love the way that she delivers that. Just this really calm boom.
Yeah.
And then her nose is bleeding.
Yep.
So yeah. New member of the family, I guess.
Yes. She doesn't seem quite as wholesome as 11.
Yeah,
Maybe it's just a question of who you run into. It's nature versus nurture. Who are you going to meet when you first escape from a government facility? Are you going to meet these assholes, or are you going to meet Mike?
Right. Or are you going to meet anyone and you just have to take care of yourself? And if you have an ability that you can just get people to see anything, you could pretty much take what you want from anywhere, right?
Yeah. It actually, when you think about it that way, it seems weird that anybody's even on their tail to begin with.
Yeah, that's true.
But, maybe that's just overthinking it. It's a TV show.
Also, it's she got a nosebleed from doing this one thing. So it's certainly possible. She can't just do this constantly.
Yeah.
So, back in Hawkins, the boys are getting all of their spare cash together to go to an arcade. Mm-hmm. And there's a little bit of a separate check-in with everyone before we really get into the story. Right. They're getting money to go to the arcade. We have Hopper going into work and getting hassled by what we think, at least I thought initially, was a reporter. Mm-hmm.
But it turns out he's a private investigator, kind of from out of town. But a shady private investigator. I think they say that he used to be a journalist and got fired. Mm-hmm. So now he works as a private investigator, and he's basically going to take Barb's family for all their money, which is awesome. Yeah. But he seems like a real crank. So Hopper's able to sort of make him continue feeling like a crank.
Right.
Even though Hopper knows perfectly well what he's talking about.
Yeah. He's a little too close there.
He's close, but he's off.
Yeah.
He's off enough to be like, you sound crazy. Because he's talking about aliens and Russian spies.
Mm-hmm.
So Hopper's like, you do realize you basically sound like, you know, the Weekly World News at the checkout counter. No, you're so wrong. Whereas inside he's like, but you're kind of right. Just not as much as you think you are.
And yeah, speaking of this guy, we jump from this scene with him and Hopper to the scene with oh my God, I forgot her name, and Steve. Jill, right?
No, Nancy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know why I can't remember her name, but I feel like when we first covered the first season, I got her name wrong all the time too.
Her and her mom, I think we kept messing up, because isn't her mom's name Karen?
I think you're right.
And I was confused because my mother-in-law's name is Nancy and my stepmother-in-law's name is Karen. And I kept just being like, one of them, I don't know. Somebody I have to see at Thanksgiving does such and such.
And they are in his car reading over an essay that he wrote to get early admittance to a university. And it's not good.
Oh, it's so funny.
And she's trying to be encouraging, but like,
she's so cute. Because his line is so funny. Because first of all, I love that he's writing this essay on notepaper. Like, remember, people used to hand in actually handwritten essays once upon a time. Not everything had to be like written on a computer and like printed out. That was fancy. Like either you had a typewriter or you just handed in handwritten things.
Yeah, you don't even need to handwrite anymore. You can apply online completely now.
Yeah, no. Well, and you know, as far as anything, kids just don't write anymore once they get to a certain age. They just stop using pens. Like when I worked at the Apple store, and you know, kids would come in, because I was in a college town. Kids would come in, their laptops would be broken, and we'd be like, "Yeah, we need to keep this overnight to fix it." Their faces would just go blank, and they were like, well, "But what? But I got school tomorrow. What do I do?" And we're like, buy a pen. What are you talking about? Like, go like function without a screen in front of you. And they're like, but I have to write an essay. Okay. Right. Like, even when I went to college, there were computer labs people had to go to. That not everybody had their own computer. It's just so funny how it's progressed to this point where people are like, I need it to do anything. Right. As opposed to Steve being like, well, I'm going to college, so I'll use cursive. Like, that's basically as fancy as he gets. But his essay is comparing something about him winning a game to his dad or his grandfather in the war.
Yeah.
And Nancy's like, I'm having trouble connecting these things. And he's like, yeah, because like how we both won. I was like, oh, Steve.
The look that she gets on her face, like she's just... Right.
I had such a Nancy face at that moment too, just looking at the screen like, oh, Steve.
Good effort, buddy, but you know.
You mean well. That
really sums him up, like, overall.
I really like Steve so much this season. Because last season he was a dick at first, and he was supposed to be a dick at first, and then he proved himself pretty well by the end. And I like this Steve without the need for a veneer anymore. Like, it seems like he learned enough from his experiences in last season that it's made him a more genuine person. Mm-hmm. It's made him more connected to his, because you don't see him really hanging out with anybody other than Nancy. And you see that bitchy redheaded girl who I hated so much.
Yes.
And you see her for a second hanging out with some other bitches. And I'm like, so Steve doesn't have this like asshole gang of friends anymore. He's found somebody he really loves and cares about and spends time with, and he's a nicer person for it. But at the same time, it leaves him a little bit lost.
Yeah.
When all of a sudden she might not be as there for him as he thought.
And not only would she not be there for him necessarily, but we have a new sheriff in town. It's
fuck this guy.
Yeah.
He's the worst.
This cracked me up because the actor who plays, I believe his name is Billy, is the same actor who played the Red Power Ranger in the Power Rangers movie recently.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And I was like, I went and saw that with Owen.
Oh, you did?
Oh, definitely. I have never seen the Power Rangers show.
No.
But Owen made me watch the show, and then we went and saw it. And it was, it was totally goofy, but it was I thought it was super fun. Mm-hmm. And Elizabeth Banks, come on. How are you not going to be enjoying her hamminess? Yes. And, yeah, he has this beautiful face. But then this hair. That's just so unfortunate.
Like, it goes beyond mullet to just being like a dead animal stapled onto the back of his head. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a mullet that's never been combed.
It really does look like it needs a good brushing.
Mm-hmm.
It's
like, it could be a glorious, it could be a glorious, like, Richard Marx style mullet if only he put a little bit of effort into it and just, brushed it out, got a little hairspray in there. Maybe that's still a couple years off, but really, that could shine. But he does not. He seems to be more focused on his eye makeup. Like, he's so pretty in that scene where they're playing basketball. It was kind of noticeable. I was like, somebody's done his eyebrows for him or something. Which was just entertaining. Whereas I'm like, Steve just looks like some dude, and this guy's all made up, but with this stupid hair. It's just ridiculous. And this car and scorpions playing.
Like, his whole vibe is just so...
And they do it on purpose. The fact that his scene, like, they open with the car screeching in and then his boot coming out of the door and, like, stomping out of the ground. He gets out and he's wearing his denim tuxedo. Oh, my God. And, like, they just hit it so hard, obviously, on purpose. It's so funny.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a joke, right? And it clearly is meant to be, super duper over the top. They're not, they're really amping up this archetype in a way that I thought was pretty funny.
I love.
But I feel
all
like might get really
staring at him. They're just, and he can see it. Like, you see him glance over at them and just sort of smirk, and I'm just like, you fucking suck. Yeah. And it's an unfortunate thing because the way that he sort of takes over feels completely true to life. Yeah. You don't show up, have this kind of confidence and intimidation factor also because he's clearly over aggressive and be that good looking and not pretty much get whatever you want in a high school setting. That's just going to happen.
Yep.
So, yeah. And then we meet his stepsister, Max. Mm-hmm. And the boys who had been at the arcade earlier saw that Dustin's high score on Dig Dug was bumped to second place. And they can't figure out who the hell it is because they basically know everybody in town. And they know everybody's usernames and whatnot. But this person signed on as Mad Max. Mm-hmm. And then this girl gets introduced to the class as Max because her name's Maxine, but nobody calls her that. Mm-hmm. And immediately Dustin and Lucas are both like, oh, shit. This scene, by the way, it kind of cracked me up and made me go watch the scene from Ferris Bueller with Ben Stein because it had a very similar vibe of the way that the kids are all staring at the teacher, except it's such a different teacher. This teacher is so engaged and like, so he's like, it's the brain and we use only this much of our brain. But at the same time, you see like people are passing notes. Yeah. People are like staring at their little fortune teller. And then the moment where the girl blows the bubble and it pops is exactly the same sort of timing as in the Ben Stein scene where he gets to the end of his speech and the bubble pops. And I was like, that's on purpose. Probably.
That's definitely on purpose. Cause they just, they find little things like that here and there. And I've just seen that movie so often that I was like, wait a second.
This for me felt a little bit, those of you who have read or seen it, there's, a group of dudes and one girl who has red hair and comes from a family where abuse is clearly like a bit of a factor, even initially. And we don't see any of her family, but we see enough of her stepbrother to know that she's got to put up with some shit from him at minimum. Mm-hmm. And he's a scary fucking dude.
Yeah, he really is.
Just to jump ahead, the scene later where he's like, and you know whose fault it is that we're here. And she says yours, and he hears her. And he's like, what? Did you say it's my fault? she's like, no, I didn't say that. And he says, well, then whose is it? Say it. And is he saying that it's hers?
I assume so.
I just want to know what that's about.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then he just, the relationship between the two of them, you think at first when you see them arguing and stuff in the car and slamming the door that it's just like, it's brother sister shit. Mm-hmm. Whereas really here, obviously he is actively cruel to his sister.
Yeah.
To the extent that, and she says later on, he's not my brother. Mm-hmm. So we get a little bit of an explanation that their family situation is complicated, but he's willing to run people down to prove a point to her, which is pretty terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, that scene, even watching it again, it was so uncomfortable. And it's really, again, him playing the role that I had seen him in otherwise, because he really hasn't done anything else before Power Rangers. He was such an all-American good boy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And for him to be this kind of like on the edge of losing it, dude, is really quite a departure. And I think he's very convincing. Mm-hmm. I did not care for it. Apparently, when he auditioned for this role, he did a kind of like risky business audition with like dancing, Lord. Except he wore a G-string in the video that he sent in. But yeah, he sure got their attention and he got hired. So there it is. So that's Max. Mm-hmm. And the boys, like, it's really, they're divided on this because Lucas and Dustin are enraptured with her immediately. Mm-hmm. The fact that she plays video games, that she's really good at it, that she skateboards is, pretty much like checking all the boxes for awesome, cool girl. Mm-hmm. And poor Will has his own fucking issues that he's
Will is not thinking about girls at all. Like this is not even maybe he's gay. Like his brain is not even anywhere on the plane of paying attention to anybody else at all, except his friends that he's so dependent on, Mike in particular. But so he's interested in this, like, I guess that's who Max is, but it's not the same thing. That thought's gone from his brain pretty much immediately. And Mike is also on his own path because he's like, I don't want another girl in the group. We had a girl in the group. I liked her. Yeah. She's gone.
Yeah, he's straight up hostile. Mm-hmm. They're trying to be like, oh, look at her, she's awesome. And he's like, what do you mean awesome? You haven't even spoken a word to her. Mm-hmm. And later on, when she gets invited to trick-or-treating, he's really snotty about it. And it's just like, I understand him feeling like having grief, but it just really irritated me. I got quite annoyed at him.
Mike is not quite the Mike we used to know. No. And his fucking parents. What did we call his goddamn father last year? He's the worst.
Ted? I think we called him Ted.
Ted. And so they're at the dinner table in a little bit, and Mike is apparently on strike 20 because he's doing things like graffiti in the bathroom and
cussing out the neighbors.
Yeah, so just such low grade punkitude for him to just be like, man.
The Mike deal is just, it's the kind of thing where I want to be patient with him because I get what they're doing here with him, but it's just, I think the thing for him probably is that he feels like nobody else cares anymore. Right. Like everybody has just moved on.
Yeah, and it sucks. It's nice when you see him have the conversation with Will later. I really, really like that moment because it feels like he was expecting Lucas and Dustin to be more supportive of him and feel the same sort of loss that he does, and they really don't. And Lucas, that makes total sense with. Lucas fucking hated Elle from the beginning. I mean, it's like, oh, she turned out to be really important and cool, and oh, she helped us, and now she's gone. That kind of sucks, but that's it. And I would expect maybe a little bit more from Dustin, but Dustin's also Dustin. As he proves as the episodes go on.
Oh God.
His attention is turned to something else. His loyalties have gone somewhere bizarre.
Yeah.
So for him, it was like, okay, Elle was this bizarre thing. That was fun. And now she's gone.
Now new bizarre thing.
Yeah. But with Mike sitting and talking to Will, and Will finally opening up about what it feels like to him, and Mike being able to believe him so completely because he had the relationship with Eleven that he did, and he believed her so completely, for Will to have somebody he can talk to who will be like, I kind of get what you're talking about. And also for Will to be able to say, oh, Mike knew someone else who would have been able to understand, and that's who he met. Like, it's a nice little bond between the two of them that it seems like weird that it took them quite this long to figure out, because it's been a year and they've never talked about it. But, you know, adolescent boys.
Yeah, definitely.
It takes a long time for adolescent boys to be like, wait, you mean I can trust my friends and actually
also,
talk to them about stuff?
With everything that had happened, it really started, like, I would imagine that right after, they were probably, like, not allowed to hang out for a while.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's probably been some weird, like, dead spots in their communication. And
Will clearly has not even really been allowed out all that much. It's been baby steps for Winona with that.
Yeah, he's sitting here with the dudes talking about Max. And he gets summoned by the principal or someone because his mother's here. And he gets taken back to the labs from season 1. I
think it's a different it's not the same place that 11 escaped from. They have to drive really far to get to it.
Okay, I thought that it was like, well, whatever
it's
it is.
Some giant installation.
Like the doctor that Will talks to goes into the basement of the lab where 11 escaped,
and there's
because that's definitely the same place.
That's it. Yeah, I or at least it's some other way of getting into the Upside Down. I just felt like that was sort of unclear. Like the way that I should go back and watch the establishing scenes of the lab from season 1, because it seems like from season 1 the place was like right there. Like they stumbled across that land. Basically, it was so close. Whereas this place,
get
you
the
see
impression
them
that they drove that far.
Okay, it just seemed that way for me because there was like an overhead shot of them in the car. Okay, and that to me sort of made it seem like we're on a field trip. But yeah, maybe I'm wrong. That's fine. It doesn't really matter. They're going back into a lab and dealing with some doctors.
Yeah, so Paul Reiser's here.
That took me surprisingly long to figure out that was Paul Reiser. I don't know why.
I did not know until after I finished the entire series, and someone was like, Paul Reiser? And I was like, wait, what?
Well, it took me at least to the end of this scene, which is weird for me. Like, I'm usually really good at that sort of stuff, but I just wasn't thinking about it this time. And I didn't realize it was Sean Astin at first either, because he got old.
No, really, I saw right away. I was like,
he looks so much like Patton Oswalt all of a sudden.
Oh my God, don't you dare.
I don't know. It was just, and like, you know, at first we see him for like a second in the store, and it took me a second to realize that he was the love interest. And then they're back in the closet and their faces all smushed together, so I didn't really get a clue. And my husband was the one who was like, hey, look, a Goonie. Isn't this movie sort of based on the show, kind of like supposed to be like the Goonies? And now there's actually a Goonie on the show. And I was like, oh, that is Sean Astin. Anyway, but yeah, so Sean Astin here, and then Paul Reiser, there was just some way he delivered some line at the end of the scene that just was so mad about you for like a second that I went, holy shit, Paul Reiser got old, and I forgot that Paul Reiser would have gotten old by now. Yeah. Oh yeah, Paul Reiser's 60. That makes sense.
Yeah, when I was watching this episode with Owen, and I'm like, that's Paul Reiser, and he's like, who? And I'm like, mad about you? And he's like,
he said what?
He didn't say what, he just looked at me like waiting for me to kind of finish the sentence, and I was like, bum ba da bum bum. Bum, ba bum, bum. And he's like, nope, nothing. I'm sorry. I was like, Jesus Christ.
I watched a lot of Mad About You. It wasn't one that I was every single week on, but I I watched a lot of that show, and there were a couple episodes of that show that were legitimately really good episodes of television if you go back and watch them. But he has such a shtick that it's interesting to see him not in that character, which was essentially himself. But there was just this one moment where he was not the character he's supposed to be here. He was Paul Reiser for just a second, and I was like, oh fuck. So it's interesting. If Paul Reiser is a doctor, I don't know about that.
Yeah. I mean,
Paul Reiser in med school, I just can't see it.
So he's talking to Will here about like an episode that Will had. And this happened while he was at the arcade with his friends.
Right.
And they are treating this as if he's having post-traumatic stress.
Right.
And that these are flashbacks. Mm. And I really, like, watching this scene got the impression that, like, because initially when I see where we are and who this guy is working for, I'm like, so he has to know that this is more than just a flashback.
Right.
But then it started to feel like maybe he doesn't. I couldn't decide. What do you think about this?
Well, I feel like the fact that he also said he calls Hopper Pop at one point, like refers to Hopper like he's the dad. But he knows Hopper's not because he shows up in town and talks to Hopper.
Right.
And so Hopper's aware that this guy knows stuff. Mm-hmm. And he knows Hopper's not Will's dad. And I don't know, it was just weird. So it seems like this weird connection between them treating it like legitimate post-traumatic stress, like this did actually happen. Mm-hmm. And they know that it happened, whatever, but also treating it like, and it can never happen again. And we've taken care of all of that because the bad guy died. Mm-hmm. And now we're legitimate government people who are going to take care of you. And Hopper almost doesn't seem to buy most of it. Yeah. But they're kind of just going along with it because they I think almost like they want it to be true.
I mean, even they don't have any options, really.
Yeah.
So they probably do want it to be true because you want to believe that the one option you have is at least viable in some way. Right.
That your child is not still weird psychologically connected to this evil place that you physically know exists because you've both been there. And the bond, can I just say how much I love Hopper? I love Hopper.
Listen.
So much. I know you, like, come on, I can't, like, I know.
There is not a woman that I have spoken to who has seen this show who doesn't love Hopper.
He just, his bond with Winona, the fact that he's still taking care of Will, even though, we never saw him really have any bond with Will before Will disappeared. We didn't know that he and Winona had any bond before now, really, but we sensed it. Mm-hmm. But and then the thing with his daughter having died, and now he's taking care of Elle, and he has this little family back. He gets to be a dad again, and he takes to it so quickly. Mm-hmm. And his emotional bond with her is so strong, so fast, that I love him. I love him. I love that this is what he's choosing to do with his life, that he's choosing to put his career at a lot of risk.
Yeah.
He's hiding a weird government subject. They could paint this in any number of ways that could send him to jail.
That's true.
And she is clearly his primary concern at all times. She is his daughter. And, it's not like she's replaced his daughter. That'll never happen. But he is just completely committed to taking care of this kid, which is not the way it was in the first season. She was a secondary concern at a couple of points in the first season. He, there were times when he considered giving her up. And he didn't, but it was on the menu.
It's interesting that you're saying that she's his primary concern because I'm pretty sure she doesn't feel that way.
Oh, she does. I'm sure she doesn't feel that way. But I really feel like he feels that way. The minute that he hears that she's gone in that last episode, the look of terror on his face when he realizes that she's gone, and the fact that he's willing to very obviously speed off to do something he does not want Paul Reiser to know about.
Yep.
He's terrified for her.
Yeah, Hopper is just
him.
There's something about this guy's vibe.
Like he's just he's this loving teddy bear, but also hyper masculine. It's an interesting combination.
So let's talk about teddy bears, because we have this character you mentioned earlier, Sean Astin's character Bob. I don't think that we learned his last name in this episode, but I'm telling you, his last name is Newbie.
Oh yeah, they do mention it. Yeah,
which I just thought was hysterical. Like, all right, chill out. Bob Newbie. Like they just that feels like the kind of thing somebody wrote like just as a placeholder in a script, and then they just kept it.
Yeah, we got this newbie who shows up. Let's just call him Newbie.
Bob. I guess fine, Bob. Sure, for now.
But that's what he is. Yep. Like here's Bob. He's new.
And since we're talking about Hopper, a lot of people wanted her and Hopper to get together, and Bob is just so great that even though I love Hopper, Hopper's also a bit of a disaster.
Oh yeah,
and Bob is I just love the two of them together.
I love that she deserves someone stable and boring. That's, at this point in her life, that's what she needs. Yeah. And he's kind. And he's a giant dork. Oh my God, he loves Kenny Rogers. And
he literally does a whoop of excitement over Mr. Mom.
Mr. Mom.
I could not. The way he delivered that, was too good. Just so good.
That scene reminded me so much when they're sitting there watching that. There was this one moment a long time ago now where we were at my in-laws' house, and this was back when having a DVR was kind of new and fancy, and they were like, we have 2 movies saved on here. We've got National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and we've got Anger Management, which is that Adam Sandler and Jack Nicholson movie. And we were like, okay, well, we've watched Christmas Vacation a million times. It's funny enough. Fine. And they were super excited about now having Anger Management because they thought it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. So that was our entertainment for the night, is that we were all going to sit there as a family, watch Anger Management. That movie, we were just sitting there just dead silent, the way that Will and Jonathan are, with my mother-in-law and stepfather-in-law laughing hysterically at they're like, Jack Nicholson is so funny. Like, they were just so over the top about it. And we were literally like looking at our watches, just like, when is this over? How long is this movie? Can we make this whole experience be over? This is like the worst thing that's ever happened.
Oh, God.
And it was one of those moments where my husband was like, I don't think I really have the same sense of humor as my mom anymore. And I'm like, no, because you're 30 and she's 60 and never the twain shall meet, I suppose. I don't know. Like, I've had the same experience with my stepfather-in-law when I'll say things online on Facebook and he'll be like, I don't understand why that's funny. And I'm like, no, of course you don't. You think Anger Management is funny. This isn't gonna work.
Oh, God.
We're not gonna intersect. If you don't think it's funny, scroll down the page. I don't even hear about it.
Bob is like the kind of person, though, that even if I don't think something's funny, he is so genuinely, sincerely, and purely delighted by it that I can't help but love it also in that moment.
I'll be happy. I'm happy for him and his happiness.
Yes.
It's the purity of it. Exactly.
He's just so great. So, so I understand people like shipping Joyce and Hopper, but I'm not. Joyce and Bob forever. So what's going on with Hopper, by the way, is that there is a weird rash of poisoned pumpkins going on around town. And he finally like puts it together because all the farmers are blaming each other that they're each like sabotaging the other's sales right before Halloween.
It's pretty funny. Like, I love this idea of like these pumpkin farm feuds.
Right.
That this is the sort of shit that on a day-to-day basis is what comes through this police office that Hopper has to deal with, is grumpy old pumpkin farmers who are like, look at these hands. I've been farming these fields for years. You know, just, it's so over the town, this is all he has to deal with is like petty theft and feuding farmers. And then in the background, there's like, and giant government conspiracies and basically aliens. And Cthulhu lives underneath our town. So fun with that.
I love, like, why do you think my hands look like this? 'Cause you're old.
Or
damn
you're old.
Straight. So yeah, he figures out that there's like a radius that this is happening from. And he goes and talks to Paul Reiser, whose actual name in the show is Dr. Owens. And he's like, hey, this looks like it could be a leak from the thing that you claim you've got all contained. And Dr. Owens just sort of like snorts and does not want, but Hopper really pushes it and is like, convince me. All you have to do is go and do some tests and prove to me that this is unrelated, and then fine, I'll let it go. And I think that's totally reasonable. I appreciated how much he pushed for this.
But Paul Reiser's full of shit and knows perfectly well that this is what's happening. So,
right.
You know, it's kind of a ridiculous situation. Because Paul Reiser's a big fat liar. This whole thing, big fat lie.
Yeah, he keeps on just like, yeah, I'm sure it's fine. You know, whatever. Like, when they're even at the field together, he's just like, just keep people away from the area for a little bit. It'll take a couple days. He's so relaxed.
I find him more villainous than Matthew Modine, honestly.
Really?
Because Matthew Modine was so over the top, obviously evil. Like, just his presence was like, here's this creepy guy with the creepy hair who like doesn't talk, and he shows up in the scariest possible moments, and he's just very slimy and whatever. And Paul Reiser's Paul Reiser, you know, he's jovial and whatever, but you know he knows shit is going on, and he's lying to the people we care about. And I'm like, that's creepier to me because those people really exist, a lot of them. That's why I don't trust people, because there are plenty of people who are perfectly able to just lie like that. Like, it's fine. Most of them are running our government, which is delightful.
Well,
you know, it's not like we live in a dystopian hellscape already. Anyway, Maggie's politics continue to just get worse and worse. That's the running theme of all of our podcasts. Is just Maggie's constant downslide into absolute political despair. Just in the background.
Sure. Political despair.
Just constant. Everything's awful. Just fuck it. Hey guys, everything's awful, just so you know. And but like Paul Reiser's a real dude. Matthew Modine was, you know, a cartoon villain. This is a guy who could come to your doorstep and be like, hey, everything's fine. And you kind of want to believe him because it's Paul Reiser. And not to the extent as, you know, like Mike's dumbass parents who like fucking salute to the guys. That scene. Oh my God.
That salute was the best thing. We're all patriots in this house. I can't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as soon as they go to his house for the first time and you see the Reagan Bush sign outside, I was like, oh yeah, 100%. That is a sign that is going to be on their lawn. There's no question. And yeah, the salute, for fuck's sake. And Mike just not being there for it at all. Like, I understand why when you see that and you see how much there's like this group of people who have just come and fed lies to his family when he and his sister know perfectly well what the truth is.
Yep.
And so now they just have to live a lie all the time. So Mike's acting out through this bratty bullshit, whereas Nancy is having to put on this act with Barb's family that is absolutely heartbreaking.
Is that the fucking worst? When I realized where she was going to dinner, I didn't even want to watch the scene.
No. And that she's going every week. Like she feels the sort of responsibility to be there for them. And Steve goes along, which is really sweet as a boyfriend, but he doesn't really seem to quite get until later when she's drunk that it's not just because she wants them to feel like, they have company. It's that she's like, we killed her, not just me, you. This is our fault. And he doesn't seem like he's really into that whole concept. It's more like, yeah, it was partly our fault that Barb's gone and we know the truth and they don't. So let's just go and help them out. Whereas she's like, you and I are fully responsible for this. This is our fault. We acted like shitty teenagers in a horror movie. And we went off and fucked and left her behind. And it's my fault mostly, but it's your fault too.
Yeah, it's really like, I don't know if he knows the total details of what happened.
I feel like he must at this point, but maybe he doesn't. Maybe that's part of why he's so blindsided by what she says to him in the bathroom, which I took that scene way too personally. I had a really emotional reaction to Steve being like, you don't love me? Like his face fell so sincerely that I was just like, oh man.
Yeah, they really managed to turn Steve into a real person.
I know. It's kind of amazing how much I sympathized with him in that moment because he's really just completely let his guard down for this person. And I'm always so boggled by that. I don't know. It's my way of, like, guys don't make sense to me or whatever. I'm like, part of guys are always at least kind of full of shit. They don't really believe this like super romantic stuff. And it looks like Steve kind of does and has fallen completely into that. And for Nancy to be like, this is all bullshit. And for him to take it as her saying that, which I don't think is exactly what she intended to say, but in vino veritas, man, this, like, you can be like, well, I was drunk. That does not mean that it wasn't true.
Right.
Like for serious, that's very, very true. And part of her believes it. And it sucks for Steve. And it sucks for her because she's in a shitty situation. She feels so much guilt all the time. And to now know that Barb's family is about to sell their house to fund an absolutely fruitless search.
Doesn't that kill you? Oh,
that was so heartbreaking. And the way she said it to them, she's like, so is that why you're selling that? And they were like, it's fine. We'll be fine. We'll be able to find Barb and it'll be one. And I was like,
hopeful for the first time in a long time.
Oh no.
Like, just stab me in the fucking heart. Why don't you? It's so rough.
And Steve's really sweet to kind of cover for Nancy when she has to go to the bathroom because he gets, he at least gets how upsetting this is for her to a pretty decent extent. And he's just like, gotta love KFC. Like, that was a great 1984 moment that they're having their family finger looking good. They're having their family bucket. That used to really be a thing. I can't remember the last time I saw somebody be like, you know what I'll do for dinner? I'll bring home some KFC. And everybody's like, yeah. And then the whole family would sit around and eat biscuits and coleslaw. But that's what those commercials were. I remember them so clearly. It's a KFC night. Like,
oh my God.
We're going to get 30 pieces of gross ass chicken.
Yeah, they're little like food callbacks here and there. Because there's a point where Paul Reiser's asking Will what his favorite candy is. And he says Reese's Pieces. And I was just like, yeah, all right, chill out, show.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, his response to that is, well, chocolate and peanut butter. How can you go wrong? But there's no chocolate in Reese's Pieces.
Reese's, it's just peanut butter
it's just
covered
peanut butter and candy coating. That's it.
Yeah.
I was just like, this is how we know you're a villain, buddy. you don't even know what Reese's Pieces are.
There's also just the fact that Hopper they have those TV dinners waiting at home with the foil on them. And then there's like the Jiffy Pop on the stove at one point. And my husband asked when they have that jump scare to the popcorn. And Bob Newby is using his cool new camcorder to record the popcorn. And my husband was like, did they have camcorders in 1984? And I was like, oh, we got ours in 1985. I remember very clearly. I think it might have been Christmas of 84. And then all of 85 was All of 85 was just straight up my dad carrying that thing around, filming nonsense. Mm-hmm. We have so many videos we do not need to have.
Yeah, when he's up in her face with it and he tells her, this is the future, I'm like, he's not wrong.
Yeah, people will be in your face with cameras at all times for the rest of your life. Enjoy it. My daughter was videotaping my son this morning because I put blue hairspray in his hair for Halloween because he's going as Hades, Disney Hades from Hercules. She did a 9-minute video with the iPad of him just because he had blue hair, just walking around. I think he's in his underpants watching TV, and she's like, I got 9 minutes of him with blue hair. I'm like, I'm so glad we have that. It's a cherished memory. Why do we need this? So yeah, Jiffy Pop video forever.
Let's talk about, because we basically covered the intros with everybody and what they're doing.
Right.
Mike in his spare time is still trying to contact 11 via the radio and being on a different frequency, which is frustrating his friends who are trying to get a hold of him because he is not available. Mm-hmm. And he says later on in the next episode to Will that he feels like he even sees her sometimes, which is not something that makes sense until we get some of her perspective. So let's talk about 11.
Yeah.
How do you feel about what's going on with her?
I like what's going on with her. I feel like the way they got her there was too easy.
Okay.
I feel like the fact that like they make this whole big deal out of her disappearance in the last episode, and then it's like it took her 5 seconds to get back from the upside down. That was sort of disappointing because I think, everybody going into this was like, well, obviously 11's going to be back. How are they going to get 11 back? And I'm like, she finds another hole in the school, and then she just uses her brain to make the hole a little bit bigger. And then she just walks through it and the cops are already gone. So it's okay. So she can she's just back.
Right.
I kind of felt like that was way too easy.
But it's like, I think that they felt like they had to, because when Will was over there for too long, he starts to get really sick. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what I really expected.
I don't either. It's not like I didn't have any expectation of, I was kind of like, what cool way are they going to make it happen? And I was like, oh, she's just going to come back immediately. Like literally immediately, like the same night. So Mike goes through this whole, like, she's gone forever. And she's gone for 15 minutes. And she's like at his house while they're getting, interrogated.
Right.
And Mike is telling these agents, I know you're full of shit. And I'm never going to tell you where she is. Which Mike's not really good at poker face. Like it might have, I understand he's a 12-year-old. So fine. But if you're really trying to protect her, probably the best thing to do would to not be all pissy at the CIA when they show up at your house.
And probably don't stare slack-jawed out your window when she finally shows up.
Right.
Yeah.
But she manages to vamoose very quickly and head off to the woods and support herself there for I don't really quite know how long it is, because we see Hopper putting the Eggos in that box in the last season, and it was Christmas. So she's out there by herself for about 2 months, for about 2 months. Yeah.
And, we see her having to, first she like kills a squirrel by like just throwing it against a tree. Mm-hmm. And then an unfortunate hunter comes across her.
Yeah.
And I guess she kills him.
I guess he gets brained pretty hard.
It's pretty rough. Like, she has to do what she has to do, but also like, couldn't you just, like knock him out and then like put him off on the side of the road or something? But the fact that like, we don't hear anybody talking about a hunter saw a girl that made a piece of flaming wood levitate.
Yeah. We hear other stories, but we do not hear that one.
Yeah. I think it's that she kills him.
Right. It would sure be handy if she had around that other girl who could make things be illusions.
That's true.
Then, make him think he'd seen something other than what he'd actually seen. That'd be handy, but no. And then she steals his coat and his hat. So at least she's a little bit warmer as things get colder. Because she still is in her little pink floofy dress at the outset. that goofy little dress they put her in.
Not great equipment for the outdoors.
No. But so she's roughing it out there until she finds the box with the Eggos.
Yeah.
And let's talk about that for a second. Why did he start doing that?
That's the part that doesn't get explained that I find kind of irritating.
Yeah. Because it's like, did he just put that there in hopes? Or maybe maybe the guy didn't die and he heard a report that something weird was happening in the woods and he just put it out there like on a hunch?
Maybe.
Like that's maybe, and then maybe that would mean that the guy didn't die.
Maybe she was leaving tracks.
Yeah.
Maybe
she just wasn't cleaning up after herself very much. And he'd moved out to the woods because he trashed his trailer. So he was out in the woods. Maybe he'd just seen signs of what he thought was her and put it out there on a hunch to see what would happen.
Well, he hadn't moved out to the woods because when he brings her to that cabin, it's a dusty wreck inside. He's not living there.
But there are boxes in it. So it made it look like he'd already started just going out there.
He says that they use it for storage and stuff.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't paying close enough attention. I don't know. He goes out there to store things there.
Yeah.
Hopper's around.
Yeah, he might have just seen signs.
And he's a better cop than he needs to be for that town.
Yes.
So it might make sense that he would notice things and start getting suspicious.
Yeah, so he's, he catches up with her finally and manages to get her situated in this cabin and gets her TV and stuff, which is no mean feat for where they are in that era.
Oh, yeah.
And I, in fairness, he's not wrong, but he thinks that he set her up pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And she just wants to get out and see the fucking people because she has been isolated her entire life.
Yeah. He doesn't realize he's really kind of recreating the situation psychologically, even though he's there giving her love. In a way, so was Matthew Modine. He was fucking with her, but she called him father. And so that's already her idea of what having family love is like, is you've got this father figure, but you're also locked up. And Hopper's not doing creepy tests on her and torturing her, but at the same time, he's in a lot of ways doing the same thing. And that wouldn't occur to him in a million years. He's just trying to keep her safe.
Yeah, I feel really bad because it's clear, losing his daughter the first time has just planted this paranoia.
Yep.
He has suffered a horrific loss that destroyed his life. His marriage ended, and he very, very clearly acknowledges because his daughter died, his marriage ended.
Yeah. And he had a drinking problem and just, it ruined his entire life. As it probably would for most people, honestly. I know people who've lost children and things continue on, and I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Seriously, how? If I lost my kids, my life would change entirely. I don't think I would ever be able to go back to it being the way it was. And so, yeah, Hopper's marriage falling apart because his kid died. That's fair. So he's off to live in his trailer by himself and be miserable.
Yeah.
And now he's refound something to care about.
Yeah, and she's just, she's already in a situation where the way that she had lived was too similar to what's happening. But also, she's a kid and she wants to do kid things. And he is a grown-up who recognizes the danger. And I'm sure there's part of her that's just like, danger. I survived this shit. I'll be fine. Right. But yeah, she's, having a really hard time using the television white noise to get her into that state. Yeah. Where she can just go and be in the in-between. Which I thought was a really interesting development. Just wondered how she figured that out.
Yeah. I thought that was really interesting too. And that she's able to pinpoint somebody that far away. and just find them and go to them. And maybe it's specifically Mike because she has a bond with Mike, but maybe not. Maybe she could do that with any number of people. Like, I don't know how else she could utilize that in-between space. But the way she does it here is pretty heartbreaking, really heartbreaking. It made me so sad. Poor Eleven. Yeah. And poor Mike, even though Mike's being a brat, but like, he just seems so broken up about it.
He's isolated in his own way.
Yeah. And he's done it to himself.
Mm-hmm.
He just wants to go live in that fort. He doesn't really care about anything else. And he's arguing with his friends all the time. Like when they're in their costumes and he's like, wait, I'm Bankman. And Lucas is like, no, I'm Bankman. And he's like, you said you were going to be Winston. And he's like, fuck you. I'm not Winston. Nobody wants to be Winston. You're saying that because I'm black. And he's like, no, I'm not. And he's like, you were thinking that. Yeah. Everybody's thinking that. Come on. You got 4 friends and one of them's black and Ghostbusters came out. I'm supposed to be the Winston. Clearly.
Yep.
He's like, Winston's not even a scientist.
Yeah. When he's like, you specifically agreed to it. And I think it's Dustin who's like, I don't think he did.
Yeah. Dustin totally does. Lucas was like, I did not agree to that. And Dustin's like, yeah, no, he didn't say that. I like the Lucas Dustin.
Duncan, what's happening?
It was the K is Lucas and Duncan. It's the C's. Lucas and Dustin. I like the pairing of the two of them so much here because we didn't get that nearly as much last season. Last season there was a lot of just sort of free agency among all of them, but then Lucas was the one who was sort of off on his own.
Yeah.
And now Dustin and Lucas have a much stronger bond, and Mike is off on his own, and Will is still Will.
Will is the casting for Will perfect or what? Like this kid just looks like he has seen things. Yes.
He's just haunted looking. And he also very much looks like Winona Ryder's child. Like,
yeah, true.
There was one scene where it was just flashing back and forth between the two of their faces. I don't know if it was in the car or what, or they were like sitting together. Maybe they were sitting together on his bed or something. And they just kept going back and forth between their faces. And I was like, that is her kid. That is maybe also because she's got this crazy haunted look in her eyes all the time.
Yeah.
So they matched that way. I love Winona.
Yeah, she's just like, I think she's, coping pretty well. She could have been a complete nervous wreck. And I feel like, she has definite moments of panic. Like when poor Will is just trying to take a pee in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And she panics going, where is he?
Mm-hmm. And that moment where the phone rings and she jumps, just like she's got little moments of freak out, as she should. Like when Hopper's talking to her about him potentially having PTSD and how it makes sense, and he's seen guys who've been to war and have had the same sort of thing, and I'm like, and you guys both saw an absolute horror show. Mm-hmm. The fact that you're not having horrible flashbacks and he is, to this weird extent, maybe should give you a little bit of pause. Because clearly he was there a lot longer, but you saw the same shit. You saw dead bodies. You saw him connected to this thing that you had to get. Like, I mean, you saw some shit, guys. This is Vietnam War level shit that you are also currently dealing with.
Yep. So, yeah, I wish that there was a little bit more acknowledgement of that from him, but I feel like because he's taking care of 11, he doesn't want to talk about anything too much.
Yeah.
So
sorry, I know we're skipping around a ton, and so it's hard to keep track.
It is a little hard to keep track, but you can. We're trying our best here, guys.
We're freewheeling, and there's a lot of just character continuity here that's worth sort of talking about, but.
So we have another moment, speaking of Will, because he had his episode while he was at the arcade, and then he has an episode when he's brushing his teeth. Or no, he gets up to pee in the middle of the night. And he hears something, and this is an interesting thing, because at other times, there was a flash, and he was suddenly in the Upside Down. But in this, everything looks the same.
Until he opens the door. Or the door opens on it. Doesn't the door open on its own?
I don't remember, but
it's outside. He sees the Upside Down outside the door.
Yeah. And there is some enormous creature in the sky outside, which I frankly found pretty fucking upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
Don't care for it. It looks like a huge daddy long legs.
Yeah, it's no good.
But with like thick limbs.
Yeah, they're real thick.
Don't care for it.
I don't like it.
And when he draws this, he like lies and tells his mom, "Oh no, that's just something for a story I'm writing," because he just doesn't want everyone to know what he's going through because already they're treating him differently, and he's really fucking sick of it.
Yeah, and it's not surprising. Like when I think it's Lucas is explaining to Max later. It's all public record. I love that. The entire school knows this story. He was dead.
Yep.
It wasn't just this is a kid who was missing and they found him. They had a funeral for him.
Yeah.
There was another body that they said was his, and they had a funeral and they buried it, and then he came back. Yeah, they're gonna call him zombie and freak and whatever. That's a freakish fucking thing to have had happen. And kids are mean. Like, yeah, you're a target. Hardcore kid. Like, she may want to homeschool you.
Right. I know, if she didn't have to work the way that she does, I think she would.
Yeah. But sending him back to that school with everybody being like, hey, aren't you dead? Like, that's yeah. So he's either in like this evil parallel universe and he has no control over when he goes into it and comes out of it, or he's in the real world and people are awful to him.
Right.
So Will's life is hell, but he's still so cute.
Yeah, he's adorable.
How does he still say, like, he's surprisingly, like, he gets through it. He puts on a perfectly reasonable face and gets through the day. That's impressive. Mm-hmm. And then he comes home and kind of melts down, but he has Jonathan there to support him. And I think that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. I really like their relationship a lot.
I do too, and I'm glad they hit it a lot more in these first few episodes because we never saw them together.
Yeah.
In the original show, really, it was just kind of going off. Yeah, Jonathan's sad because it's his brother, but here it's like, okay, brothers. This is what it looks like to be brothers. Did you feel like they packed a lot of extra overly yellow foundation makeup onto Jonathan to make him look more pasty than the actor is in real life? I kept finding very noticeable that they contoured him with yellow contour to make him look super, because he's supposed to look kind of, pasty and weird. That's sort of Jonathan's look. And for me now, it looked more like they did this on purpose. It's like they did Kim Kardashian in reverse on his face to like make him look weirder. Because he doesn't look like that in real life, but they managed it. It kept showing up on my screen. I don't know if my computer screen has gone extra HD.
Yeah,
I changed the resolution on my screen since then. Do you remember last time I complained all the time about stuff was dark and I couldn't see?
Yeah.
And I finally fixed my computer, and so it's not that dark anymore. Maybe I should go back and see if I'm as distracted by his contour as I am now, if I go back and watch the first season. But we do get a scene with him and Nancy in the first episode too, showing that they're still friends. Mm-hmm. And also establishing that Jonathan's in school, which seemed sort of nebulous in the first season.
Yes.
He was around, but it didn't seem like he was actually going to classes. Here, it seems like Nancy's kind of got him back into the swing of things, and he's really a student trying to do well. But Nancy will dump him at a moment's notice when Steve comes jumping around the corner, and Jonathan just has to keep walking. And she looks guilty about it when she realizes it's happened, but it happened.
Yep. I mean, it's a hard thing to balance, that kind of thing where you're like, you are happy with this person, you want to be able to be happy, but the action of you being happy is making them sad.
Yeah.
And, one could argue, well, if they're sad that you're happy, they're not a good friend, but it's not that fucking simple.
It's not.
So, all right. The whole thing with the Ghostbusters is pretty adorable. I really love the montage of all of them being forced to take photos with their parents in the morning
with different kinds of vintage cameras. I really appreciated that. That was fantastic. We got a Polaroid, we got an Instamatic. I think there's one that's got the flash cubes on the top, which I had one of those. That's another one of those things that I think if you tried to explain it to people of a certain age, they'd be like, wait, you put flashes physically on top? I'm like, yeah, you'd buy like 8 big cubes of light and you stick them on the top of your camera. And then once they were gone, you'd take your roll of film in and you'd buy another 8 cubes of flashes. Like, that was a thing. I had it on my Fisher-Price camera.
So weird.
Yeah. And so that amused me, all the little, it's annoying the way they, yes, they were hitting the vintage details a little too hard, but that one really got to me. I was like, look at all the funny old cameras. They're so cute. Like, we're just far enough into, we're so far into the 80s at this point that I remember 1984 very well. And I was struck especially by Nancy, because my sister is pretty much essentially Nancy's age at this point in time. And she had the exact same haircuts from year to year. So like, she had the long Nancy hair her freshman year of high school, and then sophomore year she had the wavy bob. So I'm like, it's my sister. She's in high school in 1984. It's perfect. They really do this quite well. It's pretty on target.
I really like that each of them has a totally different reaction to how their parents are making them. Yeah. Like, some of them are eating it up and having fun. You have Lucas with his sister, who's just so the snottiest little, like, she's so funny.
Yeah. I'm glad we're establishing Lucas's family, other than they're the people who stood next to him at the funeral and it looks like they're kind of rich.
Right. Yeah.
That was all we had before. But yeah, he's got this sister who is basically like, you suck at him.
No wonder you only hang out with boys. You were such a nerd.
Yeah. Nerd. And Dustin's mom is really cute. We're getting a whole bunch of Dustin's mom this season, which we didn't before. She's that actress who's been in everything all of a sudden. She's in Insecure. She's Issa's boss on Insecure. You've watched that by now, right?
Yes, I have.
Forced to watch that. Yeah. So she's in that. She was one of the prison guards on Orange is the New Black. Oh. She's getting a lot of like middle-aged lady character actor work right now. So it was nice to see her and their silly cat. And Mike hates his parents.
Yes, that is a thing.
Which we knew.
Yeah, they're saying, say who are you going to call? And he just goes, no. And nobody else at school dresses up, which is something that I like. I know from many people, being the only person who is in a costume is like a nightmare scenario.
It is. It's essentially the real life version of the dreams where you're naked in class.
For me, when I would dress up for Halloween and other people didn't, I was like, oh, sweet. I get all the attention for my awesome costume. Nobody else even did one.
Yeah, but if you're already the nerds and you come in coordinated nerd-themed costumes...
Mm-hmm. In contrast to Mike, everybody else seems to be having a good time getting their picture taken. Even Lucas, who's getting made fun of by his sister. Dustin's like, just he's a fucking ham. And his mom encourages this, which I'm fine with because he's adorable.
And his mom is adorable.
His mom is really sweet.
Yeah, that's exactly the mom that Dustin should have. Mm-hmm. And notice, though, that Dustin has no dad. I think that's worth pointing out.
Yes.
There does not seem to be any sign of a Dustin dad floating around.
I kind of like that the show does this, where they have like a sort of situation that they just don't really talk about too much. Like, it's just a matter of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like he has been brought up mostly by this one really sweet lady and her cat. And that explains so much.
It really does.
And then we have Will, too, who is, like, kind of... It seems like he's enjoying the attention and getting his picture taken despite himself.
Yeah.
You know?
He's trying. He wants things to be normal so much.
Have a good time, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, we all know that feeling, bruh.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to, I swear.
I was literally there like 3 nights ago.
Just let me have fun.
I'm really trying to have fun. I'm doing my best.
So they go to school. Nobody else is dressed up. There's a whole like thing with them feeling really embarrassed that they're dressed like this when they want to go and talk to Max.
But then Dustin leans into it.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
They finally, like, because they put it off, and then once they finally go up to her, and he shows her, like, the little thing that he made that's supposed to be the ghost trap, which is rad.
It is pretty rad.
Like, come on, especially in that era, having those kinds of props with your costumes, it wasn't a common thing like it is now, where you can buy that sort of stuff a lot of the time, you know? But
yeah,
there's
detail in those costumes. She's unimpressed, but she does come find them later.
That's true.
She's unimpressed, but entertained, I think, is probably the best way to put it. Like, part of her brain is going, oh my God, these guys are ridiculous. And then sort of like, I don't really have any other choice, do I?
Yeah, right. Like, I think that's a lot of it. Is just like, by the time it rolls around, she realizes, well, I'm not trick-or-treating alone. So I guess, sure.
But her line about, that's presumptuous of you, it's so good.
And Dustin's like, yeah,
thanks.
Awesome. He has no idea what that means, bless his heart.
I love it. I love that whole interaction.
So, yeah, she winds there. All right, so I really, like, it's hard to talk about parts of this because there are things that I'm not even fully sure what happened. So when we're talking about the bits of the Upside Down that are straying into our world that they're keeping contained, so they're claiming, the dude who works down there in the main, like, containment area at one point is just like throwing a ball against the walls, like, just not paying attention, and all of a sudden all the alarms start going off.
Yeah.
And the next scene that we see there is them sending some guy with, like, a toolkit into the Upside Down to repair, like, what do you call it? The breakers or something? I mean, I'm not even sure what it is.
Yeah.
What is, like, why? I
mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know. How would I know?
Right? Like, because this is, and I've seen the whole thing, and I'm still kind of, like, fuzzy. You know, because, like, it seems like they're using a breaker from the Upside Down to power all of the equipment in the containment area, which feels like a real bad idea. It
feels like a real bad idea, but if you think about it, that does actually make a lot of sense, considering that this is originally an experiment, and probably still is an experiment, funded by the Department of Energy. And their ultimate goal may be with this to be finding a source of energy.
Maybe.
Which seems like, again, a really stupid idea because it's full of creepy monsters. But, you know, experiments. Yeah. Why not? So that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, that's the main thing that's going on with them, pretty much, until we get
Paul Reiser shows up later.
Yeah. So, trick-or-treating. It's a bummer, honestly. Like, it's all of them keep calling it the best night of the year. And it's just, everybody has totally different expectations. Lucas and Dustin are real excited because Max came.
Yeah.
Mike is pissed because Max came. And poor Will is just trying not to have a fucking nervous breakdown, pretty much.
When, like, older kids are running at him and screaming at him.
And when they knock on a door and a woman says, "Oh, the exterminators." Will has the camera out to catch the moment when somebody's delighted by their costume, and instead they get, "Oh, it's the little exterminators."
Yeah, no idea.
Oh, love it. And yeah, these kids are tormenting Will and knock him down. And it seems like being scared is a bit of a trigger for him jumping over, because once he's knocked down, that's when it happens. And Mike later is like, "I was looking for you everywhere. Where were you?" So we know that he, like, straight up vanishes when, like, he moves over into this other place.
But you see him on the camera later, right? Like, when they're looking at the video,
yes.
He's on the camera. So it may just be that Mike is shitty at looking for him.
Or it might be that like the camera was clearly able to pick up the creature.
That's true. Yeah.
So the camera might see through a little bit.
Right.
And yeah, he's standing there looking up at this thing, and it's the kind of thing that when I saw it in the trailers for this season, the creature hovering over everything, I was kind of like, oh, really? Okay. Like, the whole idea of basically the mama of them all is here.
Right.
But once it was in play, it feels different. I think because we get close enough to it, and I thought that the creature that we saw in the trailers was like out of focus, and that once we got closer to it, it would clearly be another Demogorgon, but just giant, and it's not.
Nope.
Which is
it's
like way
something
more
else.
upsetting. Yeah.
It's something crazy and Lovecraftian that I don't know. I didn't watch any of the trailers. I did such a good job of avoiding spoilers. Like I worked so hard. It was a whole year. But yeah, no, when it showed up, the fact that it didn't look like the Demogorgon was suddenly like, why is Cthulhu here? But, we'll see where it goes. I understand why he is terrified, because it is giant. It's the whole sky.
Yeah. It's taking over wherever it is. It's like, it's in control of everything. And Will manages to jump back before anything goes too badly wrong in this episode. But he's clearly really shaken up, and Mike finally is just like, you know what, I'm having a shitty time anyway, I will take him home, you guys just keep trick-or-treating, whatever, I don't even care.
Mike.
Yeah. And then this leads to the conversation between the two of them, which
we already talked about a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's just so sweet.
And I think it's nice that the show, like, really it acknowledges that, like, in a group of friends, there are just people who sync up more. You can love everybody in your group, but there's just going to be someone that you tend to go to, and you're able to talk about things that the other person doesn't understand as much. And these two just have a connection over what happened this last year that the others
And they
don't.
also have a connection going back before that, because when they were looking for Will, it was established pretty well a lot of the time that Will was Mike's best friend. Like that this was not that it wasn't also super important to Dustin and Lucas, but like Mike and Will already had the best friend bond that like always happens in a group inevitably. And so, which made him just that much more desperate and that much more committed throughout the entire thing, not to give up to find him. So I like that they're reestablishing that, since we never really got to actually see it at all last season, because Will was gone immediately.
Right.
And we just had to hear about Mike being like, my best friend's gone. So seeing them sit and be best friends, especially at this age where it's hard for dudes to talk about stuff like this with each other.
Yeah, most definitely.
I liked seeing that, and it was nice for Mike to be able to get a lot of that out and feel like somebody's hearing him. Yeah. And even though he's being a brat, like, I understand why he's being a brat. He's really traumatized and heartbroken.
Yeah, so. I wish, because I was talking to a couple other friends who've been watching this, and they were just so impatient with Mike, like totally just not here for it. And I wish that maybe the show could have done a little more to like really get across, but I don't know what they could have done. I just feel like most of us just didn't want to deal with seeing this.
Yeah, it's like, oh, he's staring at the Millennium Falcon.
Right, yeah.
Because she played with the Millennium Falcon. And I'm watching with my husband, and he's like, you can't throw away the Millennium Falcon, regardless.
Oh my God. Owen's sitting next to me going, don't do it, dude. Like,
regardless if your girlfriend was able to levitate it or not, do not throw out the Millennium Falcon. That's a keeper. Come on. Oh, you're going to regret it. Oh, no. But yeah, my husband was like, that's just stupid regardless.
Yeah, I wonder how much one of those goes for now.
Oh, I can't even think about it. Right. They have them in museums. We have a toy museum, like the National Toy Museum here in Rochester. It's awesome. If you guys ever come visit, Owen would lose his mind. There's actually an arcade in the thing with
wow.
like a million old gate. Like it's so cool. And they have a whole, like an old Millennium Falcon and all the old figures and all on display. And yeah, they're in a museum. Mike, do not throw away something that's going to end up in a museum. Just saying.
There are moments in shows that I feel like are not meant to like give me as much anxiety as they do. and yeah, I fixate on them in this way, and that's one of those things where I'm just like, yeah, I think
don't throw away the Millennium.
I'm just like, don't do it, oh God.
It's true. Anyway,
so let's talk about what went on with, oh my God, Nancy. I kept wanting to call her Jill again.
I don't know what that's about.
Nancy goes to the party with her boyfriend the way that he asked, and he had asked her to please just let us pretend for tonight that we're just a couple of dumb teenagers and get drunk and have fun at Halloween. Which, honestly, I think he's like right on the money in terms of like his intentions and what might work. If it weren't for the fact that it doesn't seem like she has really talked to him, not really, about how much this shit is fucking her up.
Yeah. And again, it's also like they talk about with the anniversary effect sort of thing about PTSD. That's legit. That's really very true. So the fact that this is probably worse for Nancy right now than it has been, so that Steve's gotten used to it just sort of being in the background, but not constant. The closer you get to an anniversary like that, the more it really is there and it's in your head all the time. I definitely have that. And I won't even realize it. And then it'll be the sort of thing where I go and I look at my Facebook memories and I'm like, oh, it's that week. All right. Every year it's like 5 days leading up to a thing. And I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah. So that's where Nancy's at right now. And Steve doesn't understand that.
That's something that I have had happen recently. Like, it's weird because the first couple years it wasn't but recently, the anniversary of my dad's death, I forget that and then all of a sudden I'm like, why am I so fucking down and crying all the time today?
Yeah.
What is up? Yeah. And yeah, your body just knows somehow. And it's really like not my favorite. Can we know?
No, it's terrible. It's terrible. I get one in April, I get one in August, and I hate it and I want them to go away. And I try and remember when they're coming so that I can prepare myself. And sometimes I manage and sometimes I don't. But yeah. They suck. They're terrible. Yeah. And so Nancy is not super into this idea.
No.
Because Billy, this turd.
Oh my God. Well, first, real quick, I want to like mention when she sees that girl from behind that looks like Barb in the library. Yeah. And she's just staring and thinking and sharpening a pencil and gets like, sucked into what's clearly like a vortex of sadness and shame. And her boyfriend has to come up and be like, girl, what are you doing? Huh? What's up? But yeah, Billy shows up at this party, does a keg stand and like beats the record. And
which was Steve's record. It was Steve's record.
He's taking Steve's place. Yeah. Which Steve doesn't care about, which is the greatest. Yeah. I love that he keeps on being like, oh, I heard you used to run this school. And Steve just doesn't really care. Yeah. And I sort of love that because I expected this to be a thing where Steve's like fighting back and wanting to get the crown back. And instead he just seems really bored by this guy.
He seems annoyed by this guy who won't get out of his face and stop talking about this. Like Steve's sort of like, yeah, okay, cool. You're an asshole. Do what you want. Right. And so he's annoyed by it. And but it's not like there's a rivalry. It's Steve just being like, what the fuck? What? Fine. Go ahead. Enjoy your keg stand. I'm here with a hot chick. Yeah. Sorry. Like whatever. I'm doing better than you. My life's happier than yours, clearly. until what happens in about 15 minutes.
Yeah. So Nancy decides to really lean into this just act like drunk teenagers and drinks too much. And
mystery punch, which is, you don't know what's
fuel.
You do not know what's in the never do the mystery punch. It's literally, it's like all alcohol and like a drop of tropical punch. Mm-hmm. That's it. Oof. I'm like flashing back to college. It's horrible.
I made this amazing punch for a Halloween party on Saturday, and it was stronger than I thought it was. But it was, oh my God, it was cider, like not alcoholic cider, just regular apple cider, rum, champagne, orange juice, and what was the other thing? And ginger ale. And cinnamon and cloves and ginger. Mm-hmm. And it, like, I made it and I'd never made it before, and I kind of invented it. Like, I looked at some different punch recipes and was like, all right, something like that, but I don't like this thing, so I'm doing this. Mm-hmm. And I just threw it together and was like, oh, here's hoping. And then everybody kept coming up being like, this is so good. But then we all started to get a little sick because it was so good that we were drinking it a little too fast. And then it turned out to have a lot of rum in it. My bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, punch is like when it's got flavors in it that mask things, it's so easy to overdo it. And you're not even sure that's happening until it's too late.
Yep.
So
bad things, man.
She gets too drunk. Steve's struggling to get a cup away from her because she's overdone it. And they, do that thing where one of them lets go of it too fast and it splashes all down her front, and everyone at the party goes, oh,
I hate that. That's so, like, that does happen.
Oh yeah, completely.
It's so awful. It's so bad.
So she runs upstairs to like wipe it off. And he comes with her and is trying to help her, and she lets him have it.
Ugh.
And just tells him that this is bullshit. We're bullshit. We're over here partying and pretending like we didn't kill Barb. Mm-hmm. And like, we're in love and we're partying. Yeah, let's party. Yeah, we're partying.
Ugh, the look on Steve's face. The look on Steve's face broke my heart.
Yep.
How is John Ralphio suddenly breaking my heart in this show? I don't understand what's happening. But that actor nailed that moment. Mm-hmm. That you don't love me moment. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that hurt. I hurt for him. Even though I don't think that's at all what she was intending to say.
I don't think she was either.
But, it came out that way. Because, I totally believe in, in vino veritas, you have to be held responsible for what you say when you're drunk, because it is. It's in your head at the very least. But that part of the sentence where she was saying it wasn't the focus of her sentence, the word love thing. I don't think she was really at all intending to say we're pretending to be in love. I think it's more that we're pretending to be a happy, normal couple. Mm-hmm. But she said it in such a way that, like, you can't take that back.
Yeah.
Oh, and it sucks.
Especially when he says, you don't love me, and she just says it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other way to take that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She can't stop saying it. That's all she can say at that point.
Yep.
It's bullshit.
And Steve, like, hurries up out of the party because he's just lost it. And Jonathan sees him leave and realizes something happened.
Can I mention Jonathan at the party for a second?
Oh.
This was wrong. This was wrong. There was no way that Jonathan would not have recognized Susie Sue, somebody in a Susie Sue costume. There's no way. Like, this is a guy who loves Joy Division. This is a goth kid. And he's going to go to a party and think that girl's supposed to be dressed like a member of Kiss? No. That made me groan. I was like, that's so wrong. Whoever wrote that, fired. So that's all I have to say about that.
Who is Susie Sue? Because I don't know.
She's like a major, like, she was, the Susie and the Banshees were a really big part of the goth music movement. Okay. So it was like them and The Cure and Joy Division were like kind of the big, and Bauhaus were kind of the the big ones at the very beginning. And Jonathan's obviously that guy who we talked about last season has been listening to college radio and knows all this stuff because we heard him listening to a Joy Division song. And there's no way that he wouldn't have recognized that girl. Sorry.
Maybe he was just super nervous in the moment because she was flirting with him.
That's the only thing it could possibly be. And if so, he really fucked that up hard, because if he'd actually been able to say who she was, he would have gotten lucky. Sorry. At that party, that girl, yeah.
I'm going as a guy who hates parties. I thought that was pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah, and he only comes to this really because Nancy, like, you know, not made him, but she like really was like, you're not going to be home alone on Halloween.
And also because he was talking to Will and, you know, trying to make it be like, you should go out and have fun and have a normal Halloween and enjoy your Halloween.
Yeah, because he was supposed to accompany Will, and then he lets him go by himself.
Yep, he does. Because he wants to go. He's like, all right, I'll go have a normal Halloween. Fine. I'll do it. Nancy said to do it. And luckily he did, because he finds her and gets her home. And she recognizes him for a split second.
But she is so out of it that, like, the next day she does not remember that he's the one who brought her home. Like,
nope. She thinks it was Steve. Does not remember it was Jonathan at all.
I don't think I've ever had a drunk episode where I really just straight up forgot everything that happened. I don't think that's ever happened to me.
I haven't with just alcohol. Yeah. I've had it if I mix alcohol and pills, but that's it.
I just like
just alcohol. You got to be real drunk.
Yeah, I've had ones where I like lost track of what was happening.
Right. Oh,
but
sure.
I knew who I was with and what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Lost time is bad.
Oh yeah, I mean that would fuck me up.
It's
As somebody
really
who's
scary.
a control freak, don't know.
Okay, so I won't tell any of those stories because it's really bad. It's just it's kind of the worst.
Yeah.
To be like, I don't remember this part of my life. Something happened and it's gone.
He almost carries her to her room.
Yeah. Oh, she's just done.
And he takes her boots off for her and tucks her in and everything. And it's actually really cute, except that he looks super worried about her.
Yeah.
So that's the boys' Halloween and her Halloween. Let's talk about Hopper's Halloween.
Okay.
Because he has gotten so caught up in investigating what the fuck is going on with these pumpkins that he completely loses track of time. And he had promised that he would be home at 5:00, bringing a ton of candy, and that him and Eleven would watch scary movies and eat candy because she wanted to go trick-or-treating, and she thought,
I
can wear a costume and nobody will actually see me and it'll be fine. And he's like, I really like it's a risk and we don't take risks because risks are stupid. And what are we? And she says, we're not stupid.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
This is an interesting kind of thing to me because I was talking to Rashawn about this, and she was really frustrated with the fact that Hopper is being so strict with her. Mm-hmm. But I'm of the opinion that if he had let her go trick-or-treating, I would have been yelling at the TV, what are you doing?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? Like, so he's kind of in a spot where as a character, he can't win. We're going to be mad at him no matter what he does, you know?
Yep.
So he finally gets home, and she like almost doesn't want to unlock the door for him.
Yep.
And she's dragged the TV into her room and won't open her bedroom door and leaves him out there by himself. And he tries to do this thing like, fine, I guess I'll just be out here all alone. But she doesn't fall for it.
I don't think reverse psychology works on somebody who was a psychology experiment.
Yeah, probably not.
That's probably screwed up her reactions to how normal people might respond to stuff like that.
Yes. And for her part on Halloween, she uses her white noise to go and visit Mike and comes back and has this really emotional moment where she just breaks down because she misses him so much, and it's super sad.
Because she gets so close to him and it's almost like he sees her, and then And then he turns off the radio and goes away. And she's just standing there. And
she's so good, this actress. It's just
crazy. She's amazing. She's the youngest of all of them, too.
Is she? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Lucas just turned 16, which is crazy.
Oh my God, he looks like a baby.
I know. I was going through and looking at stuff
to try and do when they all like shoot up in 1 year the way that they do.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with Lucas and Dustin because, Dustin will probably stay short because the actor has whatever his genetic abnormality is, so he'll probably stay looking pretty little. But Lucas,
I didn't know that he even had one.
Yeah, that was the deal with how he didn't have his front teeth, and then they make the joke about how he's got his teeth now.
Oh.
Yeah, the actor's actually he's talked about it and been really open about it. I don't know a lot of the details. He's obviously relatively minorly affected by it compared to the way a lot of other people are. But the main thing has to do with he doesn't have any collarbones. And they're usually missing their teeth or have a cleft palate. It just has something to do with like in utero, how their bones are formed.
Okay.
Yeah. And it means that, he's always going to be short.
Oh, bless him.
Yeah.
Well, at least he's adorable.
Yeah. So it worked out.
Yeah.
And now he's, I don't know if it's supposed to be like his teeth grew in or if he got false teeth, but he's very proud of those teeth.
Yes.
He mentioned those a couple times.
I know he mentioned them, but I didn't realize that was why they were focusing on them. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Because it was really late for him to be having teeth missing. Yeah.
So speaking of him, he goes home and there's a noise in the trash can. And it's the second time that he's heard something coming from this trash can, but he finally goes and looks and there's something in there. And he smuggles it into his house past his mom, who's like, well, wait, how was it? And he's like, how was what? And she's like, what do you mean, how was what? The best night of the year. Mm-hmm. And also, why are you acting weird? Are you constipated again? Oh, my God.
Oh,
she cracks me up.
Mm-hmm.
So he finally manages to sneak past her into his room and dump what's in his ghost trap into the tank for his turtle.
Yeah, Yertle the turtle.
Yes.
Who he's like, sorry, Yertle, and just lets him wander around the room, which, I actually know people who've had turtles and just do that.
Oh, yeah, me too.
They just let their turtles out. It's like, he doesn't really need to be in there. Probably doesn't even want to be in there. So, yeah, he dumps this thing out into this little terrarium.
And it's gross.
Mm-hmm. And immediately runs for shade.
He is super taken with it and is like, oh, you're pretty cute. You know that? And I'm like, no.
Uh-uh.
No, he's not cute. He's horrifying.
Uh-huh.
What are you even talking about?
Yeah.
And it's kind of cute because there's like this moment where he had been like arguing with them about liking Three Musketeers because it's all nougat. And I'm just like, I side with them. Three Musketeers is bullshit.
So he calls it D'Artagnan.
Yes.
Which is very cute. But still, that's a baby monster, Dustin. Mm-hmm. You have a baby monster.
And he really thinks that it's just, I've discovered something brand new without really putting in context that you live in a town where some crazy shit happened and maybe it's connected.
Yeah. Remember how you saw that monster and it was big and slimy and scary?
And this, like, when he's little, really looks to me like the thing in Twin Peaks that gets hatched out of that egg.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially when its legs kind of come popping out because that was like a half bug, half frog thing. It's gross. Dustin's wrong. Let's just go with that. He is wrong to think this is cute. The fact that it runs from sunlight should have been a clue. But he's the science-y one. He's so taken with everything in the science class and, wears his little dinosaur sweatshirt and he's like, I discovered a new species. And I'm like, oh, you beautiful idiot.
Yeah. He's like, I don't know. I'm not sure. I feel like this might be a little out of character for him.
It does seem a little weird. I'm just trying to frame it through, I feel like they set it up more this season with him being super engaged in that science class. as opposed to just being like the nerdy Dungeons and Dragons kid.
Yeah.
So I feel like they were making an effort, but it's only been 2 episodes. So it seems kind of crazy that he would be, because we never saw that he had a turtle before. Who knew he likes reptiles? Put him in a dinosaur sweatshirt. That's it.
Right.
That establishes it. That makes sense. So, all right.
So that's what's going on with him. And 11 has not forgiven Hopper for missing Halloween. And in the morning, the only thing that manages to convince her to come out and sit at the table is having a giant stack of Eggos with like candy and whipped cream on. Like, it looks god awful. He put candy corn and Hershey Kisses.
Whoa, that's too much. Too much.
It's just like looking at it is making me mad. And he seems to see it as a victory that he got her to come out, but she is clearly still upset about it and doesn't smile when he's joking around with her. And finally, you know, we find out, knows that she uses the white noise to go visit Mike. And
and then she starts getting mad about the days.
Yeah, he says, well, you're going to get to see him, all right? And not just in that head of yours, you're going to see him in real life. And she demands to know when, because he said soon, like before a month had passed, and it's been nearly a year, and he's still saying soon, and there's no end in sight, and she's calling his bullshit. I love the symmetry of the fact that she has been counting the days and Mike has been counting the days, because when he gets on that radio frequency, he says it's day blah 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 blah, and she's thinking in the exact same terms. And I don't know if that's because since she's going to visit him, she hears him doing it, so she can keep track of the days that way. So she's able to go back to Hopper and say, like, on this day I didn't get to see him, on this day I didn't get to see him, on this day, all these days. So I thought that was a sweet connection there. She, so. Yeah. And they have a fight. She like jerks her head and the plate of waffles goes flying into Hopper's lap. And then she just gets up and goes to her room and flings the door shut behind her with her mind power, which is pretty rad. Yeah.
That must be disconcerting to live with.
I know, right? Yeah. A kid that can have a tantrum and it's just a whole other level. Shit just goes flying around. And yeah, that's kind of like, you know, where that ends for them at the moment. I forgot to mention that Bob and Joyce have a sweet Halloween slow dancing.
Yeah, and he talks about them going somewhere else.
And he's really like trying to be careful about it. Like once he realizes that she's had this he's like, never mind. Nope, don't want to fuck this up. It's fine. It's cool. But yeah, there's a moment where she's saying that she just like can't seem to function when Will is away from her because she's just so worried.
Yeah.
So he stays over that night. And in the morning, he is the one to drive Will to school. And there's this really sweet moment that I feel like, you know, he's trying to connect with Will. He's telling him about a creepy clown that was at like a carnival or something that he went to as a kid. And it got in his head and he kept having nightmares over and over again for like a month. And finally, he stood up to the clown in his dream, and that got rid of him. It ended. And it's like, he's so sincere.
Yeah.
You know, this is not him just trying, because for a split second, I was like, is he just basically trying to tell Will, get over it? And then I realized, like, no, he's 100%, like, this is a thing that happened to him for sure.
Yeah. He's trying to give him a strategy that worked for him.
And Will seems very receptive, you know, and is laughing at the story when he like imitates Mr. Baldo and everything. Unfortunately, this tactic is not what works in this situation.
It's so bad.
We'll come back to that.
Oh, I was so mad at you.
So Dustin stole some books from the library and has been doing some research on his own, and then winds up going into this. He comes to science class late and causes this big fuss and wants to show the teacher what he has in his box. And the other kids have finally sort of started to piece together what actually happened. Mm-hmm. And they're realizing that this thing is part of the Upside Down.
Yeah.
And don't show the teacher, oh my God. And it's like kind of too late.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't shown the teacher, but this thing gets loose.
Yeah. It gets big. Like that's what freaks them out, is that it starts, they're like, does that look bigger? Does it look like something's moving under there? Mm-hmm. And Will has this moment of flashing back to puking that thing up.
Yep.
Which,
and he doesn't actually tell them that he puked it up, because how do you fucking say that to somebody?
No. And I think he must have had to try and like put it out of his mind and, think of it as part of this whole nightmare scenario. The doctors have been trying to convince him this is just PTSD. Mm-hmm. So that didn't really happen. He didn't really puke up a monster. Come on now. And then he's like, oh, remember when I puked up that monster and thought it was a dream? Oh, fuck.
Surprise.
But of course, he doesn't tell them.
Yeah. So
it grows a leg and runs away.
It grows two legs. They pop out on each
side. Pop out on
each
side.
Yeah. And it flees. And meanwhile, poor Max, who's been like invited to hang out with the group, is not allowed in the room while they're looking at it. Mm-hmm. And doesn't she's being included a bit when they need her, but not actually told anything. And she's getting really fucking tired of this.
Yeah.
And when we go back to Joyce and Bob, he had taken a lunch break with her and told her what he saw on the tape of the kids like bullying Will. Mm-hmm. And she decides to watch it for herself. She has to call him to figure out how to use the tape, because it's one of those weird ones that you have to put inside another tape to get it to work. And when Will gets like bullied and falls down, she pauses and she sees something on the screen that's really weird. Right. And goes
like static almost. Yeah.
And goes and grabs a piece of paper and does a what do you call it? Is it a stencil? Kind of?
Yeah, basically. She traces around it.
She traces. That's the word I want, tracing. And yeah, she's able to put together that what she's seeing in the static on the screen is what Will drew and claimed was just for a story. Mm-hmm. And she realizes that this is really happening. This isn't something that he's having flashbacks or memories or anything. He drew something that actually happened to him, and she starts to flip out.
Yeah, this is her lights on the wall moment for this season. Yep. The crazy eyes are back.
I wonder if it gets tiring for her to have to play this role all the time.
Just constantly have her eyes darting back and forth in panic and terror. Those muscles must start to hurt after a while.
Sorry, guys, I hit my mic right there. So, yeah, she has figured out that this is something that's really happening. And that's kind of where her story ends this episode, is her figuring this out. And until, they have this moment later with Will. So the kids, meanwhile, are running around trying to find Dart, and Max is trying to help them, and Mike does not appreciate her help. And she finally just straight up is like, why do you hate me? What did I do to you? And he's like, I don't hate you. I don't even know you. How could I hate you? And she's like, well, clearly there's something about me that you don't like, and you don't want me to be part of your party. And she's like, no, he says, no, I don't, because you're annoying, which was just really unnecessary, Mike.
Yeah, it was.
And she convinces him that she could be the Zoomer in their party.
Right, because he says, we already have all these people in our party. He mentions 11. And she's like, who's Elle? And he's like, just somebody who, moved away or whatever.
Yeah, she's the mage.
Yeah.
Dustin is the bard. Can't remember who the healer is. But yeah, it's all framed as a D&D.
D&D thing.
And then she starts skateboarding and trying to impress him. And he seems to almost like warm to her a little bit.
Right. Yeah, he warms enough that the separate plot line that we haven't quite started talking about yet takes a pretty sad turn.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So 11 has snuck out. And her sneaking out is kind of cut with a lot of her memories of Hopper setting the cabin up for her and like them working together and all of this. And she leaves and she runs into this mom and her kid. And instead of just like walking by, she asks which way the school is, draws attention to herself by spinning a fucking like
swing all the way around
and around and around until it's like tight against the pole it is hanging from. And then just vanishes. Yeah. And it's just, she's like, flat out says as she's like walking away from the cabin, not stupid, but you are a little bit though, girl.
That's real stupid.
Real stupid. And yeah, she manages to find her way to the school, hears Mike talking because he's in the gym, so his voice is echoing. A lot. And she looks in and sees him, to her eyes, flirting with this other girl. Right. And gets really upset, jerks her head, and makes Max go flying off her skateboard. And when Max describes what it felt like, Mike kind of knows that 11 was there and runs.
She says it felt like, it felt like magnets were pulling on her, is how she describes it, I think. And he just gets this look on his face. But yeah, she's gone.
Yeah. So
I was so frustrated. I was like, come on. We're 3 episodes in.
Right.
There's only 9 episodes. Please, she's out of the house. Can we, like, it's making me sad. If she's going to take this risk in the first place, can they actually, like, have a meet cute, like, for the second time? I don't know. But anyway, Hopper's still,
she bails.
Yeah.
And on her end, Nancy has decided to enlist Jonathan in a plan to talk to Mrs. Holland, Barb's mom. And she hasn't told Steve this because when she even suggests that they tell, he's like, they could destroy our families. They could throw us in jail. Think about what you're saying. So she knows he's not on board. Like, that's just not even something she's going to bring up to him. But Jonathan is more receptive. And she makes a call to Mrs. Holland and tells her and asks her to meet them at the park because she can't tell her over the phone.
But guess who's listening on the phone?
Yeah, they are completely listening. So that's cool. Like, I think she just really underestimates the level of monitoring that is happening because she doesn't she underestimates the significance of what happened to all of them. Right. But yeah, it's really like frustrating to watch and see everybody like monitoring the whole phone call and everything and recording it. Right.
And they're clearly monitoring a lot of different phone calls. Yeah. So they are on top of a lot of what's going on in this town. And that's worrisome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, are they able to hear what happens on Hopper's radio?
Right.
I just don't know how much they're able to hear. Because Hopper gets a call in a second that freaks him out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back at the school, the kids are all looking for Dart, and Will is the one who finds him. Now he's about the size of like a gerbil. He'd been about the size of like a large mouse before.
Yeah.
And he is looking at it and like kind of chill until it sort of roars at him.
Yeah.
And then he jumps out of the bathroom and all of a sudden he's in the Upside Down again.
Yeah.
And he is trying to find his people and running outside, and nobody else has noticed that he's missing yet. And so he's purely by himself. And there's this really awful moment. Mm-hmm. He goes outside, he sees the thing in the air, and he is thinking about what Bob said, and they're cutting to it. Mm-hmm. And the sound effect of this thing hovering there and the wind and everything gets cut right to the actual scene of Bob talking
about the clown.
Yeah, with the like silence of the car. Mm-hmm. So it goes from being this really awful, tense noise to like, oh, we're in the car and we're talking and everything's fine. And it's so upsetting the way that they
really
put this together.
Yeah.
And he's standing there screaming, go away, just go away. And he's like crying, screaming. Mm-hmm. And this thing reaches one of its tendrils up and
just goes shooting right into his mouth.
It's like it turns into like a cyclone that encircles Will, and then tendrils from the cyclone around him go into his mouth, into his nose, into his ears, into his eyes, every orifice on his head. Mm-hmm. And it cuts to Bob saying, just like that, easy peasy. And then the episode ends.
I was so mad at you.
Yeah.
Because you were like, yeah, let's watch 3 episodes. And I was like, sweet. I was so excited. Yeah. And then I went, oh, I know why she wanted to stop at that 3rd episode. Because she's an evil genius. And the end of the 1st episode wasn't nearly disconcerting enough to torture Maggie.
Yeah, the end of the 1st episode is the reveal that Eleven's with Hopper, which we all pretty much assumed, I think.
And it was sweet, but, you know.
But yeah, there's not like a, oh shit moment.
Yeah. The way that there was in almost every episode last season.
Yeah, that's
where
true.
It kept being like, okay, I have to go to the next episode now because it ends on a... Which it was the same thing with the 2nd episode because it ends on Dustin opening the garbage can and being like, what the hell? And then they cut to a song. So you're like, what's in the garbage can? Even though also you probably kind of know what's in the garbage can. I wasn't expecting it to be so little though.
Yeah, same, because they were so small when Will pukes them up that I thought that they would have grown a lot more by then, but.
And yeah, we didn't mention that he hides Dart again, that he doesn't tell them that he's found them.
Oh, Dustin does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Because fucking Mike like tried to smash him, and that's what makes Dart run away. So Mike tries to smash him. That's what makes Dart run, and then he yells at Max, "You let him get away!"
Right.
Which Mike, just go fuck yourself. Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so he's hiding Dart now, despite maybe. You know, you should fucking have figured it out by now, Dustin.
Dustin.
Because Will suggests when they're all looking at it, like, well, I've seen things like this before. He phrases it like he's seen them in the Upside Down, which I guess technically he did.
Yeah.
Because he had been in the Upside Down when he, like, puked them up in his bathroom. Mm-hmm. And Dustin's still like, well, maybe it's a coincidence. Come on, buddy. What's going on here? Hey.
I need Dustin to kind of get his shit together in a very different way from how I need Mike to get his shit together, but I really need both of them to get their shit together within the next couple episodes and really start pulling it together. Because no. Yeah.
You know.
Oh, well.
So that's the end of the episode. It ends with Will staring up at the sky with his mouth and eyes and ears and nose filling with black smoke.
Yeah. So Will's getting attacked by the monster. the little monster is now being protected again. Mike is an asshole and has has made 11 angry, which is never good.
Right.
And Hopper has set off some alarm bells for Paul Reiser, and they know that Nancy's going to meet Barb's mom, and Winona knows that there's a monster.
Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, like, Winona, once she jumps in her car and like heads to the school.
Yeah, that's right, she does.
So she's on her way to get involved in whatever the fuck.
Whatever the hell's happening there. You're right. I totally forgot about that. All right. Well, that's where everybody is right now.
Yay.
And that was a shitty place to have to stop.
Yeah. Are you about to like go watch the rest of it now?
I want to. I have to go out and do stuff, and I'm so mad. Like, I have a super busy day. I might be able to watch like 15 minutes of the next one.
Oh, don't do that to yourself.
Is that a terrible idea?
Yeah,
that might be a terrible idea. Okay.
Don't do that.
I'm like thinking I might cancel on lunch with my friend. I'd be like, why
don't you guys get takeout and hang out and watch it together?
Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to actually like sit and talk like adults. God, it's so stupid.
I know, right? It's lame. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening. If you want to find out more about Unspoiled, you can find us at unspoiledpodcast.com, facebook.com/unspoiledpod, Twitter at unspoiledshow, Instagram at unspoiledpodcast. We cover so many different shows. So if this is the first one that you have found, if it is, I'd be shocked. But if it is, just put Unspoiled into your podcast app and take a look at the like 25 different shows that we've got.
The two of us even together have done a zillion.
Yeah, we've done at least like what, 5? I think
we've done Daredevil, Luke Cage, Penny Dreadful, Twin Peaks. We've done like movie specials.
Twin Peaks was patrons only, and so was
That's
Luke
true.
Cage.
So is Luke Cage. Yeah, so you won't find those on the app. But Penny Dreadful you can find, and Stranger Things, obviously. We did the first season of that together. So so that's us, if you like us. But Natasha has a whole array of lovely co-hosts who are also really fun to listen to. Yeah,
one of the other shows that's going to be wrapping up this weekend, it's the last episode of Justified.
Right.
And it's so funny because it doesn't get that many listeners compared to other shows. And I was sort of like, all right, well, I think I'm ready for the show to wrap up. And then the final season was so fucking good.
Oh, man.
That now I'm like, why is it over, though? Like, It's really rare for a show to pull out an amazing final season. And they really did. Yeah. So the finale episode is going to be recorded live on YouTube on Saturday, November 4th. So if anybody wants to join us on that, it's 7 p.m. Central Time. And just find the Unspoiled channel, and we'll be up on that. And it'll be me and Alan talking about it and talking with the people who are there, answering their questions and whatnot for the last episode.
Very cool.
So that's that event. All right. Well, is there anything you want to add, ma'am?
Nope, that's about it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Hope you've enjoyed this giant episode covering the first 3. And we will see you next week with a whole new episode. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.